Nation. I am Tracy Laranjo, and I am here with a public service announcement, which is you need to stop ripping off your test ideas from the internet. Seriously, this is not a new trend necessarily, but it's something that I think we've all done at some point, and maybe you do that right now. So I'm here to beg you, along with your website visitors, to stop ripping off your test ideas from LinkedIn, any other social media, literally anywhere from the internet, and start looking within the data that you already have and start pleasing your customers. So you probably are wondering who I am. No problem. I'm Tracy. Over the last several years, I've built over 10 ROI positive CRO programs for some of them are household names. And the things that I learned from these different programs was that the ones that succeeded were the ones that cared less about what everybody told them to do with their subjective opinions. And they just went ahead and optimized for real freaking people on their websites. So they resisted the temptation to take random advice off the internet, and they looked within their own data, they spoke with their own customers, and they listened to them, and they excelled. They made a lot more money for their e-commerce site, or they just made much better decisions for the long term. So that's what we're going to explore today. Let's get right into it. Today, we're going to do a few things. First, we're going to identify the bullshit tactics that you often see from like LinkedIn gurus or case studies, the ones that actively harm your website's ability to convert. There's a lot of them, but we're going to get to that in a sec. Next, you're going to understand how these tactics actually hurt your bottom line and what to do instead. So we're going to get right into it. Before anybody asks, these are the kinds of tactics that I'm talking about. First one, website teardowns. They're very popular, but they're subjective. These are teardowns where you usually have an individual looking at a website and critiquing it. So you see these a lot on LinkedIn. They're fun. I personally like watching them as entertainment and inspiration, but oftentimes a lot of businesses will look at these teardowns and kind of take them as gospel and decide, hey, we're going to model our website changes and tests off of what this teardown says we should do. And usually the teardowns are for a different website than the website that you're working on. So keep that in mind. Best practices you gotta try lists. These are very clickbaity and hypey. They are usually listicles that tell you all the 8 tactics that made our agency clients $5 million in a year. These are usually bullshit, or we'll get into this shortly. They worked for them, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Case studies, another popular source of testing ideas and CRO ideation. Agencies will sometimes publish case studies about what's worked for their clients. And it's very tempting to look at those case studies and say, hey, maybe we need to try it for ourselves. So look out for that one. Asking ChatGPT. This is the lowest tier of ideation you can possibly have. It's very lazy. I've done it before just to see kind of what ChatGPT puts together. And often the test ideas are hot garbage. And we're going to get into why in a bit. But don't ask ChatGPT for test ideas. It's okay if you want to use AI to help you formulate hypotheses once you already have problems. Or I would even go as far as saying it's okay to use AI tools or features within your A/B testing platform to get ideas, but don't base your whole strategy off of these. And copying other brands. You're not Apple, you're not Amazon, so why do you care what they're doing when, as you'll see in a bit, there are other things going on that you need to address ASAP. All right, so now that we looked at some of those bullshit tactics, let's look at some reasons why you need to stop using them to formulate your test ideas and your CRO strategy.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
The first big one, and this is the one that really sticks out to me, is when you follow these tactics from the internet, they distract you from fixing real issues on your website. They are just that. They're just random tactics. They are devoid of information that is actually relevant to your website. So stop looking over there. Look here. Your customers are literally begging you to fix your damn checkout or answer their very basic questions about the products that you're selling to understand why they should be choosing you over the other tabs in their browser competing for their attention. So why are you wasting time on literally anything but your customers and site visitors' problems? The brands that I've worked with who understand this, they are the ones that ultimately excel long-term in a CRO strategy. So while you're busy smacking the customer quotes everywhere, testimonials everywhere on your website, just because some guy on LinkedIn said that social proof is everything, your competitor is meanwhile stealing all of your sales because they know what drives your customers to buy and they are poaching them from you. So do not make the mistake of being distracted by these tactics instead of looking at what your customers desire and want and their frustrations, because I promise you, someone's going to listen to them and it might be your competitor. So here's what I'd recommend you do instead based on my personal experiences doing CRO for a few years. If you want to be in that chump tier, and this is kind of how I see a lot of newbie CRO programs start, you start first with the tactics as your inspiration. So if someone says, the customer testimonials in my checkout really worked for me, you should try it. You're using that tactic as an inspiration first, and then you go and test your solution, if you even do. That is not how we want to do it. We want to flip it so that you're not starting with tactics as inspiration. Rather, you've identified a problem first, and then you can look to these tactics as ways to decide how you want to do it. There are so many different ways to solve a problem, and these tactics can help make that easier for you. But you can't start with the tactics first, because then you're going to ignore the real problems. So we want to bring you into champ tier. Use your data to find a problem. Always seek problems. That is where the gold is really hidden in a website's potential. Once you've got your problem, generate a testable hypothesis statement, and then maybe use tactics as inspiration to help you create what that solution looks like. You can often find that the first solution that you try is not the right one, but your second or third might be the one that really works. So make sure that you're also testing these solutions just in case, because nothing is guaranteed. Now, reason number 2 to stop ripping off test ideas from the internet. It's a big one. They lack context. What might work for Apple may not work for you if you sell bidets, if you sell junk food online. Like, it's so short-sighted to take what works for a big brand, even if they're in the same industry, even if they're your competitor, and assume it's going to work for you and your customers. You're going to end up in a sea of sameness, and no one is going to give a shit about your product because you're just doing what everyone else is doing. And also, it's not guaranteed to work. Even if someone says that they tested a tactic, it may have worked for them, but they do not have the context that you have into your customers and your website and the politics within your organization. So be weary of any tactic that lacks context that is relevant to your customers. Now, you can do a lot here to ultimately get laser focused on your customers and your site visitors. These are just a few ideas and few things that work for me when I'm starting on a new CRO engagement. It's all user research. My solution to everything in CRO is user research. Ask your customers. Watch how they behave on your website. There's no excuse not to, because a lot of these opportunities are low cost or even free. So that can include surveying your customers who purchased in the last 30 days and ask them, why did you choose us? What made you almost choose not to choose us? So get really clear on kind of what sets you apart and where your opportunities are from the lens of people who actually purchased from you. You can also survey your website visitors during their moments of consideration. You can ask them, what is holding you back from doing XYZ? What is the action you want them to take? And ask them what's preventing them from doing so. Oftentimes, you'll just see, oh, I want a discount. Your price is too high. Those are not necessarily useless pieces of feedback. That may tell you that the value perception of your product or your offering it's just not right. It's not resonating, and there's not enough value in the eyes of the visitor. So you might learn that, and you might also learn a lot of unknowns that are happening on your website, things that you were not aware of at all. So you can tackle those quickly instead of focusing on what so-and-so is doing way over there on a website that has nothing to do with yours. You should also really buddy up with your customer support team and ask them for a log of customer support tickets over the last, let's say, quarter, last 90 days, and find out what are the general themes here. What are visitors dying to know about? What details are missing from your website? And get that information live on your website as soon as possible. And lastly, use heat maps. Study how your visitors are actually engaging with the website. Study their behavior. Get some clues into what are they clicking on that we weren't expecting them to really enjoy clicking on. Maybe they're expecting that to be a link that opens up into something else and it's a dead click. Maybe that means that you need to take this very popular piece of content and move it higher up the page. You learn a lot more from doing all of these things than just looking to someone else to solve your problems and give you all your ideas. You can do better. You should do better. You have it within you, and oftentimes you don't have to pay a damn thing to get this information. Now, reason number 3, the last reason I want to give you, among many, to stop ripping off test ideas from the internet. They're only opinions, man. Seriously. If they're doing it, it must be working, right? Wrong. You have no idea that just because a website is doing something and you admire this website, you have no idea if it's actually working for them. It's so unfortunate because I see this oftentimes with one client of mine. They're a pretty big name. They're a very popular direct-to-consumer brand. And every few weeks, I'll see some LinkedIn guru post about this brand and hype up their various parts of their website and kind of use them as case studies for what you should do when you're building your website. And I roll my eyes every time because I'm like, wow, you're speaking positively about a part of the website for my client that they're struggling with. Their sales are on fire here. So they're creating this perception of, because this brand is doing it, it must work. False. You never know what's going on behind the screen. And anybody who's not close to the data and is still telling you, you got to try this, it's just their opinion. So why focus on their opinion when you can be focusing on your customers' opinions and your visitors' opinions? Just do better. Do better. Here's what you can do instead. I would highly recommend testing and monitoring the impact of all assumptions. I'm not saying you need to test everything, because oftentimes you can't test everything. If you can, run a formal A/B test. It's better than making a decision and just hoping for the best. You can also, instead of running a formal A/B test, closely monitor the impacted metric, or the metric that you care about the most, or the site area where you made this change, over a few weeks. Try to look for a really representative period of time. So account for when you have promotions. Don't just, make your change and the next day be like, oh, our conversion rate is sky high today. But, you might be running a promotion. You might have ended traffic, a traffic source on your website that was full of poor quality traffic. So just closely monitor it over a specific period of time, and don't be lazy. Like, seriously, ask questions and cross-reference your changes with heat maps and screen recordings to get that behavioral data from visitors. If you make a change and you notice on heat maps that visitors aren't engaging with it much, that might tell you it didn't matter to them. So just learn from your assumptions, learn from your changes, and keep asking questions. And one hot tip, don't bother asking your site visitors if they like the change that you made. I see this sometimes with website redesigns. A website will tear down their entire website, redesign it from scratch, and then throw up a survey asking visitors, how do you rate our new website? How do you like our new look? And the responses are always hot garbage. The visitor does not know what the website looked like before for the majority of the time. So when you're asking them if they like a change, they're like, well, I don't know what it was like before, so sure, it looks great. Just don't bother looking for those opinions necessarily. Look at their actions. How are your visitors engaging or doing with the change versus, their opinion and what they say about it? I would still go as far as saying, though, that your customers and site visitors' opinions are the best ones that you could get. So just be wary of that. So to sum it all up, reasons to stop ripping off test ideas from the internet. 1, they distract you from fixing the real issues on your website. There's no excuse to miss these opportunities. It's such a high opportunity cost to be distracted elsewhere. 2, they lack context. Just because it worked for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And they don't know the full story of what you're dealing with and who your customers are. They may be a totally different customer than the idea that you're pulling from the internet. And lastly, they're just opinions. We're all people. We have a lot of opinions. And if you're like a LinkedIn guru, you're going to be more apt to share your opinions. It doesn't mean that it's correct, and it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. So if these 3 reasons don't convince you that you need to stop pulling tactics off the internet and calling it a CRO strategy, then best of luck to you. Your program is probably going to crash and burn, but don't say I didn't tell you so. All right, so thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, or if you're listening on an audio device, I really hope to hear from you. If you'd like to connect with me, please reach out. You can find me as Tracy Laranjo on LinkedIn. Give me a follow, send me a message. I love to meet new people. And if you're interested in working with a practitioner who understands the power of listening to your customers, you can also work with me. I am found at hello@tracylaranjo.com, LARANJO, and that's where you can find me. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Experiment Nation for having me on.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch.